Hey, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion, a program about current trends, communication, wellness, and relationships. I'm the host, Dr. Mo Anderson, and my goal is to help you stress less, produce more, and love the ones you're with. Today, my guest is Robin Shyne, an educator, author, and avid half marathon walker. She is also the host of 365 Brothers podcast, which is the thing that piqued my interest initially. I'm like, wait a minute, what? A podcast that only interviews Black men who were born in the United States and still reside here? Wow, why didn't I think of that? Oh man, this is gonna be fun, y'all.
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid? I'd rather live like I'm dying than live to die. Any day, my heart is pure, my soul is safe. Enlighten our sisters and brothers, how will you woke us still undercovers? You gotta get out of the...
Okay, Robin Shyne, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It is a privilege to be here and to have a conversation with you, Dr. Mo.
Absolutely. Likewise. As I mentioned in the intro, your 365 Brothers podcast is what brought you to my attention initially. But then I went to your website and your tagline, listening is my superpower. Just, oh man, that just got me in the gut. I was like, really? I think about all the times people have asked, what would your superpower be if you had a superpower? Girl, I've been invisible. I've been flying, everything but listening. So I said, I must learn more. And I immediately sent you an invite to be my guest. You know, every superhero has a great backstory. What's the story behind your superpower?
Girl, it is social anxiety.
Social anxiety.
All up in public with a podcast, but you know, I would be in my head, and in short, I just lived a lot of my adult life trying to make sure people didn't realize how uncomfortable I was. And the reason I was so uncomfortable was because I was just so afraid of being judged, because you know, you got to do it right. Now I could go back a whole nother level and say, I was raised, you know, I'm African-American. I was raised with a mom and a grandmother. My mom, you know, I lived with my mom my whole time, but because my grandmother didn't work, I got to spend a lot of time with her. Mm-hmm. And they both were very much like, you know, you don't share your business. There's a public face. And right. Also growing up in the 60s and 70s, you know, we were still, you know, trying to make sure we didn't draw any attention to ourselves when we went shopping in the white stores. So bottom line is I learned to mask and hide. And
that's real.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it took a weird turn as an adult. It that stayed in my head. And it wasn't just something to do with things that were, you know, truly, I guess, I don't even know if there's such a thing as truly private, but you know, there stopped being a boundary between private and public. And I started to filter everything to the point that I didn't like to be in social situations. And for those who don't know what social anxiety is, it means in real talk, my best friends could invite me to a birthday party at their home. And I would try to find something on a calendar somewhere that would be a reason not to go. And then I did some personal development work, and I did landmark education for several years, took a lot of their courses. I also, I could go the gamut, lots of conversations with friends who know how to talk and communicate and would let me go there. And in short, my backstory is I had to learn that I was whole, complete, and perfect just the way I am and just the way I'm not. And that allowed me to then be with other people.
That's
and
beautiful.
It turned out other people are kind of interesting. If I could get out of my head and stop trying to advise to look good, stop trying to one up what they were saying to look good, then it turned out we could actually communicate. And so I've been practicing active listening ever since I found out that other people are more interesting than the stories I'm running in my head.
Everything you said there just really resonated with me, Robin. Same thing. Grew up in the pastoral South, and we didn't talk about stuff outside the home. We didn't talk about stuff in the home, honestly. And then I went into a profession as a dentist where I was also taught to mask my emotions. And you can just kind of get stuck in that rut. I love that you recognized it and turned that weakness into a strength, because some people are just content. They, I hear so much, that's just the way I am. But if it's not working, with the world around you, why would you not try to undo that damage that has been done? But thank you. There are a lot of people out there struggling with social anxiety still, and maybe they just learned the name for it, didn't know the name for it. So you sound like you were coming from a sociology, psychology perspective on that. Really good information. What are then can you share the top 3 practices to improve overall communication?
Absolutely. So I jotted down a couple things, and I would say what I will say are what are the prerequisites to communicate. And the prerequisites to active listening and communication are really a desire for a relationship. If you don't actually have an interest in having relationship with who you're talking to, you gonna go online, look up the skills for active listening, and you're gonna sound like a nut. So what I'm hearing is you're saying that you really enjoy Jell-O. That's what
I hate that. I hate that.
You're gonna put those practices in place, but it won't be you doing it. Why? Because you're not interested. You're not actually there. You just running a script. You're running a program, and it's obvious. Let me just tell you. Those of you who just do the little script, it's obvious. So the first is really, are you interested in a relationship? And I actually want to preface by saying, when I say relationship, I don't mean the love of your life necessarily, although that's good too. I'm not just talking about friends. Even when I'm at Starbucks, that is a human being who's got experiences, who's having a certain kind of day. And you can have a 2-minute relationship. You can have a 30-second relationship.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you this real quick. Okay. Just a little side story. So a couple of weeks ago, I was about to make a right turn. Heading toward me from the opposite side, from the opposite direction, was a biker. And he was going through the crosswalk. Now, he kind of smiled because he knew it was driving across. He wasn't following the rules of the road.
Right.
And he was kind of a little like, oh, sorry. And I looked at him and I just gave him a big smile and a little wave, like, that's fine, you good. And as he passed me, my window happened to be down. And he said, good morning. And I said, good morning. That was maybe 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember it. It warmed my day. So you first got to know that a relationship is possible with everyone you interact with, and you have to be interested in that. Now, with that foundation, now you can start to experience curiosity. Curiosity is what gets you to active listening, because when you are authentically curious, you just want to know. And let me tell you something, all those things that you'll read about when you read about active listening, they will come naturally when you're authentically curious. You won't be judging because you're curious, and you won't be trying to give advice because you're not in advice mode. You're actually trying to understand what made you ride your bike that way today. I always ride on that side because I'm so scared to break the law. What made you go that way? But it's not from judgment. You know what I'm saying? It's
right, it's genuine.
I want to know. And I find out there are bears on that side. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? And so when you are interested in a relationship, which opens the door to curiosity, once you're curious, then the last prerequisite to active listening is validating. Now, validating does not have to mean what you will see in active listening scripts. It can mean summarizing, but sometimes you don't actually need to restate the whole thing. Sometimes just they got it.
Right.
got it. And you validated not that what they're saying is true, legitimate, but they got that you understand their experience. And that's what you're validating. You're validating their experience, not the truth of what they're saying, not agreement with what they're saying. You're validating that as a human being. We all have different impressions of the same facts.
Exactly. From our little perspective of the world. And the 3 points, relationship, curiosity, and validating, all very legitimate. I just think about the people I've talked to, particularly being in a male dominated profession and a, Black female. And I went to school in the Midwest, and I can remember people just talking. I could see they were looking through me, no interest, just mouth moving like they were looking for a really important person that they wanted relationship with, and just going through the motion. And it's such an awful feeling to be on the receiving end of that. So I try very hard, because of my own experience early in life, not to do that to people. And like you, I'm genuinely curious, but the validating, is that what they're doing? When I call customer service and I give my explanation, they keep repeating everything I'm saying.
Yes.
Is that a form of it?
Yes.
That is annoying as hell.
That's good. And you're right. You know why? Because they're not looking at it from a relationship. They're following a script. Because let me tell you, someone who's actually taken on, like I'm going to say just company ABC, because I want to, pick any company. Right. But company ABC, they've trained 20 customer service reps. 18 of them see a script and read that script. But you always know when you got one of those other two, because one of those other two, they go, "Hi, Dr. Mo." Right. So what you're saying is that your computer isn't working. Oh my gosh. I can imagine that for anyone who's as accomplished as you or busy as you, that has to be a problem.
Wow.
Now, when they say that, oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it is. You are immediately put at ease versus, well, Dr. Mo, you.
Girl, you sound like a...
Look, you are having a common problem that many people experience when they have installed the software. So I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to do to get you right back. Is that okay with you?
Exactly. First, you will reboot your motor. I literally just told you that I have rebooted my motor. You're not even listening to me. I know all your steps. You tell me the same thing. I have your script. No, I have done that. I've unplugged it. I've turned it on and off. I've rebooted it. Skip on down. Scroll, brother. Scroll. Oh, wow. Wow. I love it. I love it. And no, they're not interested in a relationship with me, but the salespeople, they know how to do it. They know how to do it.
They know that their business is built on relationship. Their check, especially if they're on commission, their check is based on you having the experience of being in a relationship, either with them or with their company. That's why.
Exactly. You are shedding light on some darkness in my life. Thank you so much. So you're an educator, I think in Long Beach.
Long Beach Unified.
How long have you been an educator?
Oh, man. So my first full-time year of teaching was 1991.
Oh, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service, ma'am.
Several years off early on, because real talk, I was like, I need to be something more than a teacher. I didn't go to college to become a teacher. So I had an attitude and I had to go get some graduate school. And then as it turned out, once I was doing what I was doing, I was like, I miss being with the kids. So I had a detour, but God didn't let me stay on that detour long and literally pumped me back into education. But that's another story for another day.
Wow. I am so glad. We need people like you in education. I say all the time, my parents were educators. My daughter-in-law is an educator. Mad respect. That's a ministry when you do it right and for the right reason. And you guys are impacting our future leaders. So yeah, really, I'm glad you are there and actively listening. Thank you so much. So does your profession as an educator, however you engage with parents and colleagues and the problems that must come your way, particularly with the environment that we've been in the past few years. Does that challenge or help your commitment to active listening?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny that you asked that because real talk, I'm much better with kids. I'm more understanding with young people than I am with the. So I don't know if the teachers even know I'm all about compassion.
That's why I asked.
But with adults, I seem to have a little bit of a shortness. So and when I am not short, relationships can blossom. With the kids, it's a lot easier because my commitment with the kids, like I go to work in order to make a difference, right? So,
right.
But in the background, it's like, y'all grown, y'all supposed to know. But let me tell you something, that don't really work in life. But back to the kids, as an educator, active listening literally transformed my classroom. I honestly tell you, when I simultaneous to having my social anxiety, if you can imagine, I was also a control freak, because one of the things that happens if you have anxiety and you're trying to manage in the world, you're trying to manage not just for the anxiety, but for everything. Mm-hmm. And so my classroom was like, you need to do this at this time, and then we're going to do this, and then this, and then this. There was no listening. And as I developed my active listening, which I would say has been the last, say, 13, 14 years. So if you could kind of say the first half of my career was standard authoritarian teacher. Mm. As I developed active listening as a practice, I'm going to tell you, I, as some teachers are, I'm one who talks in metaphor, so I hope you'll forgive me. Or analogies. I'm not English major, so don't mess with me.
Understood.
But an antidote. There we go. An anecdote. So there was this kid who we have something called alpha stations at the very beginning, first day of school. They all come in, it's signed alphabetically by grade, and they get their schedules. Kid comes in, gets his schedule. He's asking me all kind of questions, ridiculous questions. So much so I was like, they say there's no such thing as a stupid question, but I'm starting to wonder. So turns out he has me for history. Oh boy. So he comes to class, sure enough. It's about the first couple weeks of school, and I've learned to deal with him. It's like I just very patiently handle the questions. And so one day, this other kid has asked me, how come they don't teach us stuff we want to know? And I'm like, well, and I'm giving my answer. And meanwhile, he's standing there because he had come up to ask me a question about the assignment. Well, as I'm answering her, he chimes in, yeah, how come they don't teach us stuff? But active listening, I heard the emotion, I heard the upset in the background. Even though it wasn't strong, I'm listening. Mm-hmm. He's not speaking for no reason. So then I say, well, let me ask you, what do you think they should teach? And he says, well, they don't teach us like how to get along with people, how to listen to people. Like people don't listen and how to feel comfortable in the world. And I was like, okay. I don't even remember the whole of the conversation. It's been a few years now. But what I can tell you is that while he was standing there, he started to get tears in his eyes. And I actually said to him, do you want to step outside? Do you want some Kleenex? Because, you're facing my desk, but I think people might know you're crying. Mm-hmm. And I know people can't hear me. I said, I think you might know people might know you're crying. And he was like, I don't care. And we ended up having this wonderful conversation. I happened to have a book on my tablet that I thought was appropriate for what he was talking about. I let him read it. And long and short of it is, he was so frustrated with his seeming inability to get along with people socially. And we got to have a transformative conversation. That kid was a junior when we had that conversation. He graduated that year because he got his stuff together. Not only that, but I will remember grad night forever because he wouldn't leave me alone.
That was transformational. That was huge.
But and I share that anecdote because it was listening that allowed me to do what teachers are meant to do, which is to make a difference every day with each student. At least try for it. I'm going to say that.
Right. That is critical. And I'm sure you share the listening skills, the importance of listening with others all the time. I mean, obviously that's what brought me to you, but it just can't be overstated because like you alluded to with the parents, it's something you have to maintain. You don't just learn it, but it's so easy for people to trigger you. Everyone's so angry and they're loud and abrupt. And that's my challenge with all of my studying and my emotional intelligence. If you come at me the wrong way, just angry little girl comes out, and I have to really, really, watch myself and try to understand the other person, where they're coming from. But it can be difficult. It can be difficult. And I hope, what you're sharing here, these wonderful skills and anecdotes will help other people just be mindful of how they approach situations, because like with the boy, you don't know what's going on with them. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I want to make sure people know I don't have my angel wings.
Yeah.
And there are days when I am not all that with students and I hurt their feelings. I can be abrupt. And the thing is active listening is a practice. Just like Michael Jordan gonna miss some shots. Well, not anymore because he retired, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't always get it done, but I can say that when I miss the shot, I'm okay with going back to the kid or the adult and saying, you know what, I wasn't even listening. I am so sorry.
So if you were LeBron, then that would be you get the offensive rebound and you still make the bucket. I said, we don't quit. We keep trying. And I tell you what, the greatest two words in my vocabulary, the greatest three are I love you, but the greatest two are I'm sorry. And I was well into my adulthood before I learned to authentically apologize. So thank you for sharing that and being transparent. And we're not perfect. Now, I'm a motivational speaker, professional optimist, but I will share in a minute if I'm having a bad day or a bad moment, because people mistake, what it means to be human and to have a particular skill set. It doesn't mean you're perfect at it. Not at all. So, wow, you're just giving so many great little gems here. Let's switch gears. I didn't know this until you said a few moments ago. I was listening that you were teaching and then you went back to school. I knew about the BA in sociology from Stanford, y'all. And so then the JD from UCLA Law, was that after you had been teaching?
I taught. So here's the long and short. I can say this pretty quick. Graduated from Stanford, roommate and I thought we were going to do a little business. It didn't happen. Meanwhile, that business was in education. I go talk to a member of the school board about what we were trying to do with education. And she's like, well, while you guys getting started, have you thought about substitute teaching? I was like, no. And she goes, well, it might be a way to make some, did you say make some money? So I started subbing. Then the next year I got a full-time job at a middle school teaching history. Loved it. But since I had gone to Stanford and had a chip on my shoulder, I was like, but I wasn't meant to be a teacher. Y'all don't understand. So I'm going to take this little LSAT and I'm going to go to law school. That's what I'm going to do. So I take my LSAT, I apply to UCLA, I get in, and I should share.
Wait, I'm listening, but let's just pause at that. I'm going to take the little LSAT. I apply to UCLA. You just threw that out there. Like I said, I went to Walmart to get some Kleenex. That's not a simple thing. I know about the LSAT and applying to law school. Kudos to you, sis. We're not going to just throw that away like that. I'm sorry. Okay, go on. Well, go on now. Go on. With your humility.
I do have like real, I will admit that test taking is a strategic hobby.
Yeah.
I go in, and so I got my acceptance letter, and I go tell my mom. I'm all excited, and she's like, "Oh, that's great." I'm like, "Why you? Oh, that's great." And she's like, "Well, I'm just surprised you would leave something that you really love that brings you so much joy." And I was like, "Woman, did you hear what I just said?" And
Wow.
it was right. I hate that part. So that's why I went to law school, because I had to prove something. And then, there are all these twists and turns. And the bottom line is I was dragging my feet on being a full-time teacher, and whatever I was up to wasn't working out. I bought this book, Experiencing God. And as it would happen while reading it, God just lined up a whole bunch of breadcrumbs and said, "So do you want to eat or you want to starve?" And I was like, "Oh." And by eat, I mean like have a life that lights you up. And I was like,
Right.
"Yeah, I'll take a life that lights me up, And so then
Soul food.
soul food.
Yeah.
So, and I've loved it ever since. And so here I am.
That is fantastic. Yeah, those mamas get you too. And they remind you. Mine still reminded me about stuff she was right about 30 years ago. Like, all right, already, okay. White flag, white flag. You were right. But they can recognize that light in us. They saw it the first time it appeared. So they certainly know what it looks like. And coming from the outside, it's often more recognizable. And kudos to you for being willing to, make that change and go back. Some people get so caught up in trying to make a dollar that they never think about trying to make a difference. And if you put, I think those need to be in that order, trying to make a difference instead of trying to make a dollar.
I'll say this. I said to God, God, I will do it. I know people don't think you're supposed to talk like that to God, but I said,
no, I do.
God, I will do it. But I need a down payment for a house or a condo or something. Kid you not, the day I committed, the next day I got a phone call settling this case, and that money became the. And I was like, "Okay, God, I hear you. Look, you ain't got to say another word."
Wow. We got listening techniques and now a testimony. Won't he do it? Wow. Wow. Love it. I am a woman of faith as well, and I believe that our steps are ordered, and he's got us. So good for you. Good for you. So with that background, education, law, you've done so many amazing things. I really would expect you to be writing books still about education, government, politics, something insanely boring. There are interesting books in those areas, but it's not my genre. But I was very surprised when I saw the titles of your books, and the one that really caught my attention was Adventures in Compassion. Tell me about the title, about the book.
So I knew I didn't want to have kids, and long story short is in my early 40s, I was kind of irritated by people who would be like, "So really, you're not going to have kids? You don't want to have kids? You're not going to have kids?" And to be fair, I was irritated. And also I read this story in the LA Times, I won't forget, about this woman in India who wanted to not have any more kids, but there was this pressure on her. It was one of those, multi-series, articles. And I thought, why is child free so looked down upon? And so I started this nonprofit called Earth Mothers, which is now defunct. But it was through that I was like, well, what difference can we make as child free? It's like, I want to promote something. I want to promote the ways we contribute. And it ended up having me do some research, and I stumbled upon the power of different acts of compassion. And when I was reading the different books that were out there, they were all like this long list, just, 100 things you could do. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's 100 things I can do, but I like a structure,
Right. And I have a job. Okay.
Right. And you're just saying, go be nice today. Okay, go listen today. So I was like, I want to reformulate this and package it. So I picked 30 actions, and I called myself, put them in a kind of order. And so day one is smile at 5 people. Like, I'm not asking you to go out your way. You don't even have to say hello. Just smile at 5 people.
Yeah.
And before I published it, I was like, let me do it. Right. So I had written the book and I spent 30 days doing each of the actions in the order that I said. And I was like, it's kind of funny because only talking to you right now after all these years, do I realize that God wrote that book? You know what I mean? Like that God was with me, because when I did them, I was like, dang, this is cool. Like it was like my whole sense of self altered in those 30 days. I felt more connected to everybody. And I felt, I mean, it's kind of cliche to say, but I felt more alive. Like I felt more empowered because I was pushing past boundaries. You know, some of the actions are like compliment a stranger. They're little things, but when you actually do them, it really transforms you. And so that birthed the title Adventures in Compassion, because it really, after I did, I was like, that's kind of an adventure. And thus the title Adventures in Compassion.
That's a wonderful title. And as we talk about adventures and journeys, I'm kind of seeing your journey, the path that you've taken from someone with social anxiety to helping others, with their emotional intelligence and their interaction with others, and specifically how you can do that. You're right, just the generic stuff out there, because what's nice to one person is not nice to another person, or even within cultures, it can be just right hand, left hand. So to be specific and not leave any ambiguity about that. I love that. I'm gonna can you get it on Amazon? Is it still in print available? Yeah.
Yeah. You can get yourself a print copy or an ebook.
Robin Shyne, y'all. RAHBAN Shyne.
Yeah.
SHYNE. Love that. Is that a family name? The first name? That's such an interesting spelling.
Oh, honey, it's funny. So that title, Adventures in Compassion. So you're good. You are an active listener. Let me tell you. So before it was called Adventures in Compassion, it was called Make Love Every Day, because I was
and you changed.
And here's why. So it was Make Love Every Day. And I was like, oh, you're a high school teacher. You can't go make love every day. So I was like, I need a pen name. So I literally created the name Robin Shyne. And then between the getting it ready and publishing, I ended up I ended up changing it to Adventures in Compassion, but I still love that pen name. And so I went to the courthouse and changed that legal, baby.
Wonderful. It's a beautiful name. And in all my research, I put a lot of research into all my guests. I did not see that anywhere. So I am glad I was prompted to ask that question. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
So I began the show in the intro saying that the first thing that pulled me to you was Brothers, as in 365 Brothers podcast. I was like, oh my goodness, I just been out here in these streets trying to figure out how to meet brothers. She got a whole podcast, and brothers are coming to her trying to be on them. Why didn't I think of that? But seriously, it is a wonderful, wonderful concept, a great podcast. And it's not new, y'all. If you like to binge, she's got tons of great episodes up on every major platform. But of all the things, why 365? Why 365 Brothers?
Well, so I got a thing with numbers. That's the bottom line. So before I did the podcast, so I'm right in the middle of doing 100 half marathons. So what happens is I trained for a half marathon and I did it. And I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. Oh my God, this feels great. It's the perfect challenge. I'm going to do 100.
Okay.
Because that's how I am. the same woman who said, I'm just going to apply to UCLA and do this little LSAT thing. So I think you get a sense of how I work in the world.
I do.
I want to do 100. And I just happened to be about 10 years from retiring. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to call it Walk to Retirement. So I just did my 51st. I got my 52nd coming up next weekend.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I did one day 365 poems. So me and a friend, we each did a poem a day. Some of them were pretty good. A lot of them ain't that good. But I posted them come rain or shine, no matter how good or how bad. And I guess I have a practice of discipline, and numbers help me do that. They help me practice integrity. So I did the 365 poems, and later I felt like a missing when that ended. So then I took on 365 doodles. You can find them at All Things Shine, SHYNE on Instagram. You can see most of them. But then in the middle of life, while I was doing the 365 doodles, there was Ahmaud Arbery's information about his death. And then there was a gentleman, Mr. Cooper, and I apologize for not remembering his first name, but Mr. Cooper, who was in Central Park, he was bird watching, and a woman basically weaponized her whiteness, if you haven't heard that phrase. Basically, when he asked her to, go someplace else because her dog was someplace where it should not have been to respect bird watchers. And he asked her kindly to move along. And she decided to call the police and said, I'm going to tell them there's a black man, da, da, da. And then as if all of that wasn't enough in the, zeitgeist, then next thing was George Floyd's murder. And I had said I wasn't going to watch that video. But when I saw Minneapolis and a police station on fire, because I was here in LA during the 92 riots, I lived those riots. Yeah. So when I saw they burned a police station, I was like, okay, you can't not watch it. And watching it, I just was left with, okay, why are Black men seen so one-dimensionally? Why are they immediately seen as threat? And that's all that was until I woke up one morning and literally ceiling in my bedroom, I wake up and nothing's there, but in my mind's eye, it says 365 brothers. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Interviewing 300, that's cool. What about my next morning? I wake up, it's there again. That is a great idea for somebody. I see it. I get it. I'm not a podcaster. I'm a doodler. I'm a poet. You want me to write 365 poems? I can do that. And then the next morning, it was there again. And I was like, so you mean me? And I went to the store. I bought to Barnes and Noble, and I bought Podcasters for Dummies. And that's it.
Wow.
And I've since learned, I've since taken the perspective, let me say that the 365 poems, the 365 doodles, that it was God's way of training me to commit to something and know that I could get it done, so that when 365 brothers showed up, it wasn't like, I hope I can do it. It was like, okay, I get it. It'll take me some years, but I got it.
You do have it. And that's a great story. Sometimes I kind of have, I used to be a journalist back in the day. And sometimes, you just like in law, you don't really ask a question you don't know the answer to. And I have to say that one of the great things about podcasting for me is that I generally don't know the answer to the questions that I'm going to ask. And it is so delightful to me, having been a know-it-all for much of my life, that I am able to learn as an intellectual tourist. And I'm glad you shared that, because that has happened with me, where a thought or a character or a title just keeps coming back to me, even though I'm not grasping it. I'm trying to get away from it. And I just finally have to give in, because it's not going anywhere. Unlike other things I try to remember. I've got Post-its all over my desk right now with these things I'd like to become recurring in my short-term memory. But it's a great podcast, you guys. 365 brothers and the diversity, the different professions. You ask the same 11 questions and get amazingly different answers and insight from the conversations that ensue. And it's not just her asking questions. You guys have conversations, which I really have enjoyed, the ones I've been able to listen to. How did you come up with those questions?
I wish I could tell you that, I'm just brilliant.
You are. You don't have to tell me that.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to deny some intellectual capacity, but when it comes to those questions, I did think through them like, okay, well, I want to ask this, I want to ask that. And then what would happen is at 3 a.m, I would wake up and it would be like, yeah, change the wording here. Yeah, change this question. And, no, not that question. Add this question. I'd be waking up going, wait, what? I'm asleep. Okay, I'll type it out. And I wake up in the morning and I'd be like rereading it. Oh, yeah, that is better. So I really think it is a collaboration. And by the way, I hope you don't mind that I'm about to make an aside here, but okay. Talked about books and how they kind of come to you, right? And I'm going to tell you that one of the brothers I interviewed, he shared, because one of the questions I asked him is, was a favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book? Anyway, he tells me about this book, The War of Art. Have you read that?
Mm-hmm. It's an Asian, I can't pronounce the name. No, not that one.
I'm going to give you a D on active listening right there. I know, but I did the same thing. So that's why I can do that.
Okay. Hey, I'll take that D as long as you're going to educate me.
Right.
Don't just give me a D and roll out.
The F, because I was like, oh, yeah.
No, The Art of War. You said, okay.
Right. And I did the same thing. And then he was like, no, The War of Art. And I was like, The War of Art? What? Girl, let me tell you something. That book is all about the creative process. Anyone who's listening to creative, it's about how we fight it. Art is war. We be fighting. Oh my gosh, we resist. We don't want to do it. And it's the nature of the beast. And it was so great to read someone and he's a funny writer, talk about that.
I will look for that when I go to get your book, because my mind went straight corporate leadership, 48 Laws of Power, The Art of War, all of that, all up in my library. So, hey, good looking out. I don't mind that D. That's all right. I will take that.
Well, you know why? Because we recognize our own. You were saying how you're an intellectual and you normally know everything, but on the podcast, you don't know what's coming.
Exactly.
Girl, I have learned to be okay with not being in control.
Absolutely. It's actually a kind of good feeling. It's kind of good to surrender. Well, they are great questions, and we won't say all of them because I do want you guys to check out her wonderful podcast and her website. She's going to give you all her information to connect and follow and like and share. But I have one more question for you. Your signature question for the brothers is, if the United States was a woman, what would you say to her? I now pose that question to you, Robin.
If the United States was a woman, I would say to her, girl, come have a seat. We need to talk. You have like amazing potential. First of all, everybody turned their head to look at you all the time. Everybody loves you. But here's the thing, girl, you don't love yourself. And never have a great relationship until you love yourself. And you got to love your liver. You got to love your stomach. You got to love that little tummy that stick out a little bit. You got to love them breasts. They're a little bit sagging, just a little bit. You got to love all of you. And, just saying, as a nation, you got to love your yellow, your white, your brown, your black. You got to love your young, your old, your rich, your poor. You got to love all of you, because the moment you stop loving any part of you, you ain't worthy of the love that you deserve.
Wow. Mic drop. I have nothing to add to that. Beautifully stated, very eloquent and profound. Tell everyone how to contact you, how to connect with you again, please.
Absolutely. So 365brothers.com, you'll find links to everything you need. If you are a brother listening and you would like to be a guest, I'm always looking for guests. You'll find current episodes, anything you need, 365brothers.com. Super simple. To follow me on Instagram, I'm at 365brothers. And on Facebook, it's 365 Brothers, the podcast. But you can find links to all that if you just go to 365brothers.com and, come listen to a brother. They are fascinating. They are amazing.
Indeed, indeed. And so are you. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're the first podcast host that I've had as a podcast. The second, my son, you're the first female podcast host that I've had as a podcast guest. And I was a little intimidated by that thought, but it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I've learned so much, and hopefully we can get you back sometimes. Thank you so much for sharing, Robin.
Thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for the books you write, because you are out there helping us all grow and be healthier, better, more powerful. Thank you, Dr. Mo.
Thank you for tuning in to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast, my YouTube channel. And hey, visit my website at drmoanderson.com for more about my books and workshops, or to schedule me as a speaker for your next event. Until then, renew, review, and renew. Thank you. Life is limited, so think while you're living.